At this very moment, the Russians have been trapped in a cauldron. This operation left Putin's jaw on the floor. NATO has entered the game. The propagandists are losing it. The occupiers are raging at the front, Kostiantynivka is under siege, and Sumy is on the brink. Could a nuclear strike become a reality? All this in our episode Hellpoint. Shocking footage from the front lines. Sumy is one step away from a Russian trap. The offensive has gained momentum. The Ukrainian armed forces are stopping the occupiers and dragging them back by the scruff of the neck. This has never happened before. While they're pushing into the Sumy region, they're losing their own territories. Explosion after explosion. What will Putin's soldiers face as a result of this brazen breakthrough? We'll tell you in just a moment.
Russia continues its offensive in the Sumy region. The occupiers are trying to break through certain sections of the front. According to statements from the spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service, Andriy Demchenko, the situation in the region is tense, especially in the Khotin and Yunakivka districts. However, there is no evidence of a large-scale offensive by Russia. The enemy is advancing in small assault groups, losing hundreds of soldiers every day, including due to the bridgehead held by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region.
The enemy is trying by any means to push us out of Russian territory. But we have good operational positions, and most importantly, we are using them to destroy large enemy forces. And it's very important to note that these are professional forces. As a rule, in other sectors, most of the troops are conscripts. In other words, what we call cannon fodder, but here we're facing airborne troops, naval infantry, air assault units, parachute regiments. In other words, those who have been trained for a long time to carry out such operations.
Also, according to the military, the enemy, likely assessing its own prospects, is hardly using any armored vehicles at all in the Sumy direction. At most, the command is deploying light motor vehicles. This allows them to move somewhat faster across open terrain, but it does not have any decisive significance.
The Russians continue their strategic offensive operation. When analysts talk about the enemy's advance, whether it has increased, decreased, or increased again, what is it due to? You have to look right away at what it's due to. Show us which sectors specifically. In fact, over the past few weeks, the Russians have achieved only one such non-strategic but operational success. This is the breakthrough of our defense, a tactical breakthrough by division-level forces between Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka, reaching the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka highway.
However, having pushed into our defenses, the Russian Federation is constantly subjected to flank attacks, which allows us to effectively destroy the enemy and regularly replenish our exchange fund. For example, over the past day, the armed forces of Ukraine repelled more than 50 assaults in this area.
He said that this is a major offensive, but it is certainly enough to draw serious attention from the Ukrainian defense. The Russians have assembled what they call the Northern Group of Forces in this area. Essentially, they have moved in from the Kursk region.
To minimize civilian casualties, Ukraine was forced to announce an evacuation from areas near the border. The authorities explained to locals, this does not mean your home will be occupied, it's just becoming too dangerous there. At present, there are 213 such settlements.
Just sit down and explain.
Yeah.
By the way, Ukraine is thwarting the Russian offensive not only through actions on the front line, but also in the rear. Yesterday's blowing up of a railway bridge in the Kursk region and the derailment of a train in Donbass are proof of that.
So that the enemy doesn't relax near occupied Melitopol. Ukrainian special services, specifically Ukrainian intelligence, the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine derailed and destroyed a freight train carrying shells and ammunition, a Russian train on the occupied territories. Strikes continue to be carried out. Over the past day, strikes were carried out on Lukhove, on the Kursk area, and on Russian territory by Ukrainian forces in order to prevent the enemy from regrouping and, let's say, supporting their own logistics, delivering ammunition and personnel to continue offensive actions in the Sumy region.
At the same time, the bravado of Russian war correspondents claiming that troops are advancing on Sumy looks completely absurd, according to experts. Despite minor successes in the Sumy region, the likely outcome of all these actions by the occupiers will be temporary control over a narrow strip of forest belts along the border.
Voiceover, again, overall, this is quite a slow, not very, how should I put it, consistent, not very well coordinated offensive. The point of which, as I understand it, is to carry out Putin's order and create in the Sumy region what he called a buffer zone.
The Ukrainian side also predicts that the Russians will not be able to reach Sumy. Currently, about 50,000 enemy troops are concentrated in this direction. And for such grand plans, these forces are clearly insufficient.
This happened right under Putin's nose. The Crimean operation. It's hard to believe something like this. Lightning strikes hit the bridge directly. The whining has reached an unprecedented scale. Russians are urgently leaving Crimea. Ukraine hints this is not the end yet. What shocking details about the explosion of Putin's crossing have become known, and will the occupiers remain cut off from Russia after this? We'll talk about this in just a moment. One of the supports of the Crimean bridge exploded at 4:44 a.m. on June 3rd. The video of what happened was released by the Security Service of Ukraine, which carried out the special operation. 1,100 kilograms of explosives in TNT equivalent detonated underwater. The maneuvers were personally overseen by the head of the Security Service, Vasil Malyuk.
God loves the Trinity, and the Security Service of Ukraine always sees its plans through to the end and never repeats itself. Previously, we struck the Crimean bridge twice in 2022 and 2023, so today we continued this tradition, this time underwater.
The explosion severely damaged the underwater supports of the road section of the crossing. So from 6 to 9 in the morning, the roads here were completely closed. And in the afternoon, news of an alleged second strike began to spread on Telegram. Smoke rose above the bridge. Russian social media channels started reporting about a drone attack. In Sevastopol, the operation of passenger sea transport was suspended. This is what Russian Taman looked like after the new incident. 150 cars were counted in the line for the bridge. And even more 250 coast to leave the peninsula and head to mainland Russia. Later, Moscow would claim the traffic across the crossing had been fully restored and that in fact there was no serious damage. Meanwhile, global media are filled with headlines about at least a PR victory for Kyiv.
Ukrainians are showing that they can cause problems for their enemy. And this bridge is symbolic for Russians, while for Ukrainians, it is also a key logistical route used by the occupiers to bring reinforcements into Ukrainian territory.
Journalists from the Wall Street Journal called the attack on the Crimean bridge a new stage in the protracted war. They say that both sides are set on escalation and a peace agreement brokered by the US is becoming less and less likely. However, the White House remains silent about this, as well as about everything else.
President Trump wants both leaders and both sides in general to sit down at the negotiating table. As for how he feels about the dialogue and everything that happened there, I'll let him speak for himself on that matter.
And while Washington refrains from commenting, military analysts are at a loss as to what exactly struck the Crimean bridge this time. According to one version, the underwater drone Toloka may have been used, specifically its TLK-1000 variant. This model is capable of carrying up to 5 tons of payload. According to another version, it could be the 6-meter-long Marichka drone, whose capabilities were publicly demonstrated back in 2023. Moreover, it is equipped with systems that provide satellite navigation and even allow communication with a live operator. As for the second strike during the day, it was most likely carried out by the Magura maritime drone, which was equipped with anti-aircraft missiles. As usual, Russian public channels released a video of its interception and immobilization. Ukraine first attacked the Crimean bridge on October 8, 2022. An explosive device went off in the middle of the crossing, causing part of the automobile section to partially collapse. The second time this happened was less than a year later. In July 2023, one of the spans was brought down by SBU naval drones. Anna Basova details InterTV channel Marathon, United News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Kostiantynivka is on the verge of complete encirclement. The Russian command is throwing waves of mercenaries into battle. The attacks do not stop neither day nor night. But our forces are holding on, repelling assaults and preparing a foothold for the infantry. Every minute is worth its weight in gold. How a new page of our history is being written right now in Donetsk region, see more in the following report. Good afternoon.
From the northeast, from Chasiv Yar, from the south through Toretsk, and from the southwest along the Pokrovsk-Bakhmut highway. From 3 directions at once. Forces from at least 3 Russian combined arms armies are currently pressing toward Kostiantynivka.
They are always assaulting, always attacking, and they always have forces. And basically they attack along the entire front. Wherever something works out for them, that's where they throw in more troops. Here at Chasiv Yar, things aren't really working out for them. You see, it's holding. The main thing they're using against us is tube artillery. They really don't spare any shells when it comes to us.
At a distance of 12 to 16 kilometers from Kostiantynivka, the Russians have concentrated a very large group of troops in a semicircle, and every day they drive forward a huge number of ultimately expendable individuals with assault rifles. And that's not even counting the remote air support. KABs explode around Kostiantynivka and in the city itself by the dozens every day.
You hear those KABs? Attention, KAB pilots. On Kostiantynivka, 20 kilometers, boom, we can't hear a damn thing.
But the main problem is really drones. Enemy FPVs penetrate up to 20 kilometers into the rear, though in reality sometimes even deeper.
Great. Well, there's plenty of that stuff.
Strike drones can fly up to 50 kilometers and often at altitudes unreachable by small arms.
It flies high. Yeah, it flew at about 700 meters altitude and the range of about 700 to 500 as well. Is that somewhere in the direction of Konstacha also? To Konstacha. And from Konstacha, they can even reach Družkivka. They're already flying further out that way.
Since the beginning of spring, enemy kamikaze UAVs using fiber optics have become a real problem all along the front line. The only way to counter them is by physically destroying them, because no electronic warfare system can jam these drones. But there are some truly incredible exceptions, assures Skitri, a former reconnaissance officer and now a member of the ground robotic systems crew of the 93rd Mechanized Brigade.
Our guys were coming out, waiting for a vehicle, and an FPV drone flew right over them, about 2 meters above the ground. One of the guys jumped out and broke our fiber optic cable. He tore it with his hands. Yeah, it was at an angle. He grabbed it with his gloves, yanked it, and broke it. And the drone fell. If they hadn't done that, there wouldn't have been an evacuation vehicle.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Of course, as you know, our soldiers also use various types of drones, including reconnaissance, FPV, and quite a large number of heavy night bombers. Dear friends, thank you so much.
Launched. Stabilized. The bomb is on its way. Go. Right on the plate. It will be cast. Just what we needed. Everything's just fine, plain and simple.
It's precisely with the help of drones that Ukrainians stop enemy assaults, mine potential enemy advance routes, and fly into the rear, destroying depots, camouflaged equipment, and occupiers' hideouts.
They all die, as usual. They all die, as always. Well, it's the usual story, like when, for example, 9 motorcycles go out, or 10 motorcycles. And as things go, they all, one after another, first, second, third, and that's it.
But obviously, the enemy has managed to make at least a quantitative leap in the use of frontline UAVs. After all, the Russians are attacking both the front line and the near rear with drones around the clock non-stop. All of Kostiantynivka, especially its southeastern part, is now wrapped in enemy fiber optic cables like a web. Around Kostiantynivka, the Russians have essentially created a continuous, highly dangerous red zone about 13 kilometers wide, where any movement, no matter how small, is a game of roulette with a 50-50 chance of survival. The main target of the Kremlin forces is probably not so much residential buildings and civilians, although both glide bombs, drones and artillery are pounding the city non-stop, but rather logistics, meaning the routes connecting the rear with the front lines. Under these circumstances, it is aerial drones and ground robots that become the main tools of war.
Right now, it really is a drone war. Drones are shooting down other drones. Drones are taking out equipment, both ground drones and FPV drones. Basically everything that flies or moves remotely now.
However, without infantry on the front line, it is still impossible to hold the front, at least for now, Ukrainian UAV operators admit. On the other hand, making things easier for their fellow infantrymen with the help of drones is entirely realistic.
The main task is to reduce the presence of infantrymen and to engage them only when necessary. This paradigm that close quarters combat is the norm is a scandal. Well, that's the right approach. With UAVs and ground robotic systems, we need to make it so that infantrymen don't have to engage in close quarters combat at all.
Reporting from the Kostiantynivka direction in Donetsk region, Alexander Motorny, Oleksiy Osavchuk, and Serhiy Shportilo, TSN 1+1, United News Marathon.
Putin's nuclear scare tactics. The West is shouting about a new strike. The SPU operation has finally broken the dictator. He's on his knees but continues to spit venom towards Ukraine. He urgently puts everyone on alert. Once again, there are threats to strike with the Oreshnik. The unexpected has happened. More details about this in the following report.
With its special operation web, Ukraine has demonstrated that it is capable of striking Russian targets deep within Russian territory. This was stated in an interview with the American TV channel Fox News by Keith Kellogg, the U.S. President's special representative for Ukraine. At the same time, he's concerned that such attacks could increase the risk of escalation.
When you target a part of the adversary's national survival system, namely its triad, its nuclear triad, it means the level of risk increases, because you don't know how the other side will react. It's a very bold attack, but when you do this, it's quite clear that all other levels will escalate. I think this is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
The use of drones is a sign of modern warfare which everyone needs to adapt to. But in this case, according to Kellogg, it's more about the psychological impact on the Russian leadership and military. At the same time, the special operation has shown that Ukraine has no intention of giving up.
Every time you attack the nuclear triad, it's not so much about the damage you inflict on the triad itself or the bombers, but about the psychological impact. Essentially, Ukraine is saying that it knows how to play this game too, and that they can raise the level of risk to unacceptable heights.
Colonel Richard Kemp warns Ukraine of Putin's inevitable retaliation for the destroyed Russian aircraft. The former commander of British forces in Afghanistan shared his perspective on the consequences in one of the tabloids. He suggests that Russia might launch a nuclear strike against the concentration of Ukrainian troops or one of the airfields.
An even more horrifying scenario would be a nuclear attack on a nuclear power plant. Although the radiation from the tactical weapon itself would not pose a threat to Western Europe, radioactive fallout from a destroyed reactor would cause significant environmental damage. The consequences could overshadow the Chernobyl disaster. The latter possibility is almost unthinkable. A nuclear bomb dropped on a Ukrainian city such as Odessa or Kyiv.
The Kremlin has constantly threatened Western societies in order to achieve its goals. Therefore, there is no need to fear Russian nuclear intimidation. The Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation of the National Security and Defense Council is convinced.
Right now, all the talk in Western media about the nuclear threat only benefits Russia, because nuclear scare tactics are part of the fear propaganda they have always used to intimidate Western societies in order to achieve their goals without war. Publications about a Russian nuclear strike serve only to instill fear.
Moreover, this kind of nuclear saber-rattling is harmful, first and foremost, to the aggressor country itself.
It's important to always remember that even the mere theoretical intention to carry out a nuclear strike would harm Russia much more. Because today the entire world stands against the use of nuclear weapons, and Russia survives solely on energy resources that are still being purchased from it.
Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky once again called on the West to increase pressure on Russia so that the aggressor pays the highest price for the war it has unleashed in Ukraine. Sofia Żelezniak, Katerina Krawiec, Podrobności, Inter TV Channel, United News Marathon.
Right now, the sky is on fire. The anti-aircraft gunners are making new history without unnecessary noise, swiftly and accurately. Silent hunters. The enemy calls them ghosts. They take down everything that flies and inflict millions in damages. Lancets fall one after another, even halfway to their target. More about the broad-shouldered guardians who keep watch over the skies in the following story.
They hide behind the clouds, descending toward the horizon. This is the time for the night hunters of enemy UAVs to get to work. First, as usual, comes the commander's briefing.
Guys, we are about to go on duty now. Our task is to detect shaheads and similar ones. Those are our parodies, greetings. We'll detect them and we'll destroy them. The more drones we destroy here now, the less our rear will suffer. Let's go.
In a nearby grove, a truck with an anti-aircraft gun is hidden under a camouflage net.
A ZU-23-2 system mounted on a ZIL-131 chassis.
The anti-aircraft gunners of the 118th Brigade move to combat positions along the dusty dirt roads of the Zaporizhia steppes.
The air defense crew hides their anti-aircraft gun among the trees. Enemy scouts, for example, the Zala drones, are constantly prowling around here. In fact, says 42-year-old Alexander from Vinnytsia, they try to shoot those down as well.
Zalas, and there was a super Lancet. It's important to know its distance and speed, and then set new lead corrections.
We shot down both Super Cam and Lancet. Shaheeds have also been shot down.
But the biggest threat, says the 25-year-old officer, the one that really matters, is of course the Shaheeds. There are more of them now, and they're flying too high.
We are fighting back, firing at them. If before they could fly at about 1.5 to 2 kilometers, we could see the same bursts from the anti-aircraft guns and adjust our aim properly, but now it's hard even to detect them. They've climbed to almost 5 kilometers.
This is another concealed position on the first line of air defense, equipped with an anti-Shahed anti-aircraft gun.
Previously, it was used to fire at infantry, but now the direction of the war has changed. They gave us all the necessary sights. That's the only way.
Here, together with his comrade, is a 56-year-old man from Vinnytsia with the call sign Shaman. He says their shift is around the clock, so the question of when they manage to rest brings a genuine smile.
That's how we keep going. Somewhere where there's no alert, you need to go wash up, buy something, and that's it. Well, sometimes here, there are half days when, there's nothing going on, it's quiet and calm. Then we try to go somewhere to get some sleep.
Two comrades with the call signs Murchik and Sanich are also setting up their anti-aircraft gun, getting ready for a night hunt. The anti-aircraft gunners say they have a collimator sight, but for better effectiveness, they need something more.
We try to shoot down Shahids, but we still need to upgrade the anti-aircraft gun to make things easier for us.
Sanich from Kherson shows us the sight the anti-aircraft gunners of the 118th Brigade need a mount for. And not only that,
we need a mount, a tablet for it, and of course the software as well. The spotlight no longer reaches them. They fly very high now, at least 2,500 meters. We simply can't reach them with the spotlight, but the sight is much better, we can actually see them.
So the anti-aircraft gunners of the 118th have launched a fundraiser for mounting systems, sights and tablets to more effectively shoot down Russian Shahids.
This will greatly speed up our ability to detect the enemy and to accurately target them, that is, to see them on the tablet and track them.
And they are asking for support from anyone who cares. Andriy Pocht, Artem Dezhenko, Fakti, ICTV, United News.
This is a first on the front line. A next-generation sniper rifle is already in the hands of our defenders. Once shot, then the enemy is thrown into a panic. Neither trenches, nor armor, nor experience can save them. The skilled hands of our soldiers turn this weapon into a true instrument of wonder. It hits its target precisely and makes its presence known, even when operating in silence. More details about how it works in the following report.
From the so-called assembly of components to full-scale domestic production in less than a year. In November 2024, the Ukrainian state company Ukroboronprom announced the start of licensed assembly of the Czech arms manufacturer's Brand 2 assault rifles. And now, 6 months later, the domestic factory is already capable not only of assembling the Western model of the weapon, but also of independently producing all the necessary components for it. This is already up and running. The first step is the installation and production of small parts. The next step is full-scale production, meaning the complete transfer of the technology to Ukraine. The Brand 2 assault rifle, as Western arms manufacturers assure, is a new generation automatic weapon. It is a modern firearm system developed based on the American AR rifle and the Soviet AK. As a result, the Czechs took the best features from both models and combined them into an entirely new weapon in terms of design and internal components.
In terms of quality and resistance to dirt, it seems to me that the Kalash now has a worthy competitor.
Resistance to dust and dirt is not the only advantage of the Czech Brand 2. Due to its design differences, this assault rifle immediately won over Ukrainian defenders. Today, it is quite popular on the front lines.
It works great. We haven't tested it for grouping. The weapon isn't highly accurate, but the automatic mechanism works excellently. The barrels are durable and intuitively designed.
At the same time, the Czech rifles assembled in Ukraine have a high level of modularity, which allows the weapon to be quickly adapted for specific tasks.
What do we see on top? Undoubtedly, this is an advantage of the Scarets and extruded upper receiver Picatinny rail and its uniform along the entire length. You can mount your aiming devices and any optics along the entire length of the upper receiver on the Bren.
In the Czech Republic, the Brand 2 is in service with both army and police units. In Indonesia and Mexico, the rifle is mainly used by police and the special forces, while in France it is used by gendarmerie special units. As for Ukraine, the Brand 2 is most widely used by special units of the main intelligence directorate. Most often, you can see it in the hands of Kraken fighters and members of the International Legion.
Of course, this weapon is not highly accurate, but what can be noted is that this carbine has a rather high rate of automatic fire, and that That's actually quite nice. You do need to learn how to control it a bit, as practice has shown. Not everyone manages to do it right away, especially with the short barrel.
Today, the Ukrainian factory producing Czech assault rifles is confidently reaching a capacity of up to 400 rifles per day. However, by the end of 2025, both domestic and Western arms manufacturers are sure that our country will be able to independently produce tens of thousands of brand new units.
That's all from me for now. This was me, Darlina Hutsakalo. Even more scorching news from the front lines in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.